Welcome to Association Chat, produced by Amplified Growth and Human Factor, talking about all things association, nonprofit, and anything else that pops into my mom's head. And now, here is your host, Kiki L'Italian.
All right, it's official. We are testing this sucker out.
We're dancing.
Excited. We're dancing. You may not be able to see it because right now you're looking at a picture of Blake. And you're looking at a picture of me telling Blake off. I'm telling you off. Yes.
Off? Off. All right. Off.
All right. So here we are, and we are going live with this test. This test, you guys. This is our new sort of setup. So we're testing out all of the nuts and bolts. Look at Blake in there in the sound room. Hey, Blake.
I will be here. We have sound effects. We have more to... Lots of fun stuff to come.
We have way more fun stuff to come. So I'm enjoying checking this out and looking at myself and checking out the different cameras. And so one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to test out the call-ins. We wanted to test out bringing on guests. And with that, let's talk a little bit about what our subject is for today.
What is it?
We're talking about design thinking because... Do you know what design thinking is, Blake?
Well, it'd be something having to do with design and how you think about things. How's that?
Close, but no cigar, right? So design thinking is this framework that
Sorry.
That was an extended applause. That's what happens when he has control of the sounds, right?
Buttons.
Yeah. So it's actually a framework that you use for solving problems, and it's been this buzzword. Now it's supposed to solve. There's design thinking for services. There's design thinking for everything, and so it's not just designing a better toothbrush or something like that. It's actually going through and it's figuring out how to solve problems. And a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people are learning about it, reading about it. So it seems like everyone's an expert on design thinking. And there are a few people who've been doing this for several years, many years, and applying it to their creative work. And so I want to talk about design thinking. Is it the end-all, be-all? What is it? How are associations using it? How can you use it? And what do we need to ask ourselves about design thinking? I mean, truly, are there other ways to creatively solve problems? So with that, let me bring on my good friend, dear friend, and talented, creative technologist, and president of Being Creative, all-around goddess of the world, Layla Masri. Woo!
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was slowing the switch there.
You are slowing. What is going on with you?
Hi.
So Blake got super excited about his sound effects in there. So many buttons.
So many buttons. So many buttons. So little time. Hi, Layla.
No.
Hi. Thank you for the applause. I will take applause, even if it comes from a button. I love it.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And Anne, I do see you. I want to see Anne is absolutely a good friend of ours. She's watching right now as we do this test run as Kiki the Italian. I love that they translated this on Facebook Live. But she says, can only chat on YouTube if I create a channel. Otherwise, looking great. So, but you're chatting here, so that's good. I'm watching this. I'm watching over here, too.
And there's one thing you forgot, Kiki.
What's that?
Now that you're live, the phone number.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. So, Anne, there is another way. There is another way, my friend. You can actually dial in. Can we show the...
It's on.
Can we pull up the dial-in
yes,
number?
It's on.
So what this means is you can actually call in at 202-816-5367. That's the association chat number. And you can talk with us. Everybody can hear you. You don't have to be as picture perfect as Layla is, our wonderful guest. But you can dial in, and we might put you in the queue and then bring you on so that we can hear what you have to say. So let's talk about design thinking, Layla. What's the story? What's design thinking, and how have you used it at Being Creative?
Sure. So I think a lot of people get confused by the term or the phrase design thinking because they make the assumption that it implies that you have to be a designer, that you have to be able to draw, and you have to have these amazing artistic skills, and you have to have all these proficiency with software like Photoshop and various tools. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Design thinking is actually about thinking, and it's the design part is really about using your brain to allow yourself to kind of think about possibilities. And so one of the exercises that I find to really kind of get people in this mindset is to give people about like 30 seconds to a minute. And you just, if you have a room full of people, or people could do this right now, take a few moments and think about, how would you design the perfect wallet? It could be the perfect anything. But
Yes.
the idea is you would sit down with like a piece of paper and you would start drawing out your perfect wallet. So for me, my wallet might have different things than yours. I suspect it would. So mine might have a place for my kids' photos, and maybe a place to stash my business cards, and maybe a lipstick holder. I know, Kiki, you and I are fans of bright colored lipsticks.
Yes.
So the idea here is that you would take a piece of paper, you would draw something out. It doesn't have to be beautiful, but the idea is that you've given yourself space in which to kind of frame a question and to think about the possibilities. So I think that's what design thinking really brings to any organization, whether it's an association or not, is kind of creating, as you said earlier, that framework in which to problem solve and to kind of have a methodology to go through as you solve things.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great description of what it is, because, it's breaking something down. A lot of times people assume, we all do this, it's throughout history, we figured out how to sort of jump to where we need to really quickly, because it's been a matter of survival. Like, that bear's chasing me and it's a bad thing to do that, like I need to run. But sometimes with something as simple as a fork, you can say, is that a good design? Well, it's everywhere. Everybody uses it. Sure it is. But is it for somebody who is elderly and can't grip very well? Is it for, and so when we start digging into asking and understanding really who is our audience, who are we designing for, then all the time you're finding out that, oh, okay, so maybe this design isn't the perfect thing. And that's what I think the beauty is with design thinking, and why it's good for people to learn about what those different steps are and to learn more about the framework. So have you worked and applied design thinking with your clients in the past? Like, give me an example of some of the ways that you've incorporated that into your engagements with them.
Sure. So, I mean, with my organization, Being Creative, we're a digital development firm. So the kinds of thinking processes we go through are going to focus primarily on how you're going to be communicating or delivering services via digital avenues. So that could be your website, it could be an app, etc. So, some of the hot topic buttons that are really big for associations across the board are the things that we cover as well. So, for example, how do you increase non-dues revenue? That's probably the biggest number one thing people want to talk about. How do you onboard new members is another great one. Those are things that can have solutions throughout the communication cycle. So, for example, I might help a client create a way for their website to kind of onboard people and to provide resources, and not just kind of let them join and hunt and peck and like find all their member benefits, but create kind of a pathway for them to join and then be offered these things, through a website. But people can also do that same kind of process of new member onboarding, design thinking, and thinking about how they might do their newsletters, or how they might have a member be paired as a buddy with a new association member. So there's a lot of different ways that you can approach that. But that's the way that we attack it, is kind of, from the framework of where, we're helping people in the digital space.
So let me ask you this question. So I absolutely, I love design thinking too. I think it's something that has a great use. But one of the questions I've been asking myself lately is it the answer for everything? Because I do see it being used more and more often for things that, I don't know. I'm like, well, maybe there's another framework that fits that better. Can we design think using design thinking in this instant? You know what I mean? And so, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Like, is it the answer? Like, where am I going to eat dinner tonight? Oh, design thinking. Let me empathize. Let me empathize.
Where are we going?
First step is you have to empathize with all the hungry people in your family.
Right.
No, there are valid reasons for going down that path. And typically, I think the best uses for design thinking is when you have to pull together different decision makers. If you have a small pool of decision makers, it's easier to make a decision, but you don't get maybe that breadth of insight that you might get from doing a design thinking process. So just as an example, this is not one of my clients, but the typical design thinking process actually has 5 stages, and it's worth at least kind of noting those. So the first one you and both were joking, but the first one is empathize. And that means that you cannot make assumptions about, well, I know our members, I know what they like. I'm assuming that they're going to want X, Y, and Z thing. That empathizing stage is actually really important. It's when you develop a deep understanding of the different people using or experiencing whatever you're offering, and making sure that you deeply understand what their pain points are, how they want to use something, how they want to engage, etc. And that involves, actually FaceTime with them. Then there's the actual definition of the problem. We can talk about that, or, that can be a topic unto itself, but kind of defining the actual problem is a real important piece of the puzzle. And then the ideation process is when you are, coming up with all the possibilities of ideas. So, where are we going for dinner? What kinds of food do we want to have? Prototyping, I think, probably speaks for itself, but, kind of coming up with that proof of concept and making sure what you've thought through actually makes sense to develop fully. And so then you go to test phase. So those are kind of your five pieces. But an example that I think is worth sharing, actually, the VA, the Veterans Affairs Administration, they did a really great project using design thinking. And it was all about trying to better leverage their resources efficiently to serve the needs of their veterans. And particularly, it was about the hospital experience. So how to get people into the queue, having a good experience at the hospital, but also kind of minimizing the cost and the wait time. So that's kind of that defining the problem aspect. But it took a real world issue that people were grappling with, and it allowed them to kind of kick around a lot of different ideas and test something through to completion.
Yeah, I design thinking, I think, is extremely powerful, but I think the biggest defining factor for me between design thinking and hush now, hush. See, this is what happens. I used to be able to get away with it, at least to my own self, but now I have to answer
more.
What is going on? But it's interesting because when you look at the innovation process, that empathize piece is missing from it. It's 4 steps, it's not the 5. And that fifth, that they almost match out entirely, except it misses out on that empathy piece, which I think is so important. One thing you talked about was the exercise about like designing a wallet, something that everybody can understand, but we all have a million different ways that we use it. And it really shows you an example of, like, it's a really good example of why some of the ways that we imagine that we already know what the answers are, these assumptions can really get in our way from designing the best sort of experience that somebody can have.
Can I give you just a really great example?
Yeah.
2 examples. One where it was a failure and one where it was a success. So
I love it.
Which is first?
The failure, of course.
Okay.
So one of the ways that you can have a failure in design thinking, as I mentioned, is not taking time to really understand the users. And actually, Google Glass, we've all heard of it. The kind of glass and
glass holes.
Yep.
Yes.
Glass
That's
holes?
exactly what
they would call
happened.
they would call you glass holes, like instead of
glass holes.
It rhymes with right.
So Google Glass was designed without empathy. So the reason, and I'm going to read you a quote. This is from MIT Technology Review. They said, "No one could understand why you'd want to have that thing on your face in the way of normal social interaction. So the idea here was it was cool, right? You could send photos and take pictures and read messages, but it's not normal for people to walk down the street, saying, okay, Glass, send a message. Like, we're all looking around.
But Layla, didn't they say that about the Walkman?
Correct. Jamming down the street.
No, they did.
But
I think somebody said we're going to have the Walkman was going to be a failure.
Well, they were wrong.
Yeah.
Well, we all walk down the street now jamming to tunes. I think that's a social change. But I do think
Kiki's
that
dancing already.
I'm ready to dance.
But there was definitely it was very socially awkward. And it also raised a lot of privacy concerns. So if you were okay with someone talking to themselves, it still raised a lot of questions about, like, what are you doing when you're talking to me? Are you recording me? Are you, broadcasting this to association chat, etc.? So that's an example where, the mechanics of it, the prototyping, testing, like, it was very technologically advanced, but it didn't hit the mark with kind of fitting in people's lifestyles. The actual user couldn't really fully embrace it. So a success story, it's a product you probably haven't heard of. I heard of it when I was actually studying design thinking, and it's really cool. It's this product called the Embrace Warmer. So it's actually it's like an
I wish I had the porn music.
Sorry.
No, it's not porn. It's like a little
that's going to get blocked by firewalls.
For babies.
She's like, it's for babies, you perverts. Oh my God.
Wait, come
on.
Sorry.
No, but this was actually a really interesting product that this group of developers created. And it was for moms who lived in remote areas who had very hard times getting to a hospital to put their baby into an incubator if they needed to have their baby, use that service. It was really challenging because in hard to reach places where hospitals aren't nearby, they would have to make a very long trek to a hospital, and they would have to leave their baby. Instead, these people created this low-cost incubator that could be used in a remote place by a mom, like in her house. So the reason they came across this is they went and they met with these moms, and that's where the empathetic component comes from. I don't think they could have come up with this product had they not had that meeting with the end users. That's where I think design thinking really shines, is when someone's like, wow, I really wouldn't have ever thought to have done that, but that's like was the key of their product.
Right.
So wait, but hold on. So the key solution takeaway here is that we should talk with the end user.
Yes.
Yeah.
The end. No.
We figured it out.
Dun, 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 dun. No. So anyway, you're supposed to talk with the end user.
What a concept.
Also, I'll add on to that, and you're supposed to look for your extreme users, like the ones who absolutely are at the extremes, because when you design toward that, then most often you find something that's going to be effective for everybody. So it's like. A good example is that I forget where I heard about this, but it's that is it OXO or OXO, that brand that has
they're like tremendous innovators in like kitchen gadgets.
Yeah, and everybody has one. I have one, and it's like these like a potato peeler or whatever. Like
OXO.
OXO is the brand.
OXO, yeah, they've like reinvented the can opener,
right?
And the whisk, and it's unbelievable.
But the story behind that is I guess the president, the owner of OXO, his wife had rheumatoid arthritis. And what he did was then he went and created something that would be for her. Now she's at an extreme, right? She's at an extreme. But would you actually prefer to have something that is, these old-fashioned, hard to grip, hurt your hand, even if you're totally able-bodied and young and everything? Or would you rather have the padded, more comfortable, ergonomically friendly handy grip? And like when I open up kitchen cabinets, because I go through everybody's cabinets when I go to visit them.
I've had to lock them.
But like at mine, I don't see people really using those old-fashioned ones anymore. Nobody's ever inviting me over again.
We need more sound effects queued up.
So I will say also though, to your point earlier.
What was my point again?
About I don't know. I think you said something really smart. Like,
oh yeah,
something about the end user.
Oh, you were saying, so all you have to do is think about the end user. And I will say, everyone likes to, and everyone in technology likes to quote Steve Jobs. You all have your favorite quotes. I have one of mine, I think, which is telling, is that there's no way that the iPod, which revolutionized, obviously grew into the smartphone and where we are now with a lot of these devices, there's no way that you could have come out of a kind of user session with people and say, hey, well, what would you like to listen to music with? No one probably would raise their hand and be like, oh, I'd like this revolutionary device that can hold thousands of songs in my pocket. And, they're not going to necessarily innovate that. But that idea of like Steve Jobs had a nugget of something, and then he prototyped it and tested it and it took off. I mean, there's that aspect of it. So you can't use design thinking and talking to users in a vacuum. I mean, that's not the only way that you're going to come across something, but it definitely is, again, something to have in your arsenal. I think probably the biggest mindsets to watch out for. I mean, the two biggest ones literally are people say, I think it's easier if we just figure it out ourselves internally. And, I've worked here a while and I think I know what our members need. The other ones that are people are, what if it doesn't work? I don't want to rock the boat, which, is kind of that Steve Jobs who's like, well, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
We're rocking.
We'll figure out and pivot from there.
Yeah.
And then finally that people think that this is this trendy, thing that's, for consultants and specialists. I mean, you can do design thinking with your own staff, in your own time. There's many different ways to go about it. It doesn't have to be super structured or anything like that. It's really just a process to follow to make sure you've checked a lot of boxes.
It reminds me of when they asked Henry Ford had asked people what they wanted. They would have said a faster horse.
Exactly. Yeah, actually, and that's one of the things that you're supposed to do through the process is you're supposed to look at what the first answers that they give you and really dig down. And that's where your 5 whys and stuff like that can come in. Well, I need a bigger wallet. Why? Because I travel a lot and I need to carry a lot of documents. Why?
But that's the why. The why. What do they want versus what I'm going to sell them?
Well,
or what I'm going to give them?
So you dig down because sometimes it's feelings or it's a need that they don't know that they have that hasn't been addressed yet. So you dig down. People can cry over these questions because it's like, well, and I also have to carry pictures of my kids because I put them next to my desk and I don't know why I travel so much, really. And it's like, and so it's like, but it's helpful. It's helpful to do that because you do get at the heart of what somebody's real needs are. And I also heard something about, turning the needs like into a verb. So it's like something where if somebody says that, I'm trying to think of a good example, and of course it's failing me right now, but it's like something that gets you to, well, instead of I need a faster horse, I need to go super fast. Like you need faster. You need to just go fast, and you get away from already.
So Henry Ford, would the correct question be, how can I improve transportation? Is that right, Layla?
Yeah. So I mean, the typical. So we're getting into what is a problem statement, which is the crux of what problem solving is here. There's a great quote. It says, a problem well stated is half solved. So knowing what you're solving for is really important because you don't want to be super broad. You don't want to say, oh, we need to make more money.
Yeah.
You could attack that in a million different ways. And you don't want to be so narrow that like there's very little kind of probing that you could do. So like kind of a good, again, I like exercises because sometimes this can feel a little esoteric. So a really good exercise is the difference between saying, I want you to think of 10 silver things.
10 silver things?
10 silver things.
10 silver things, right?
Now,
what if I said, I want you
think.
to think of 10 silver things in your kitchen? Well, you're like, oh, okay, I've got, maybe my toaster oven, I've got, the blade of a knife. Like, you want to have some parameters to give you some, some walls to bump off of. Again, it's not too narrow, but it's not so broad. So, like, some examples of a good problem statement. First of all, you always want to start off with a user issue. It has to be human-centered. It's not about my organization. It's about, I want my members to do this. I want, something for the end user. Then you want to have, sorry, my headphones decided to take a walk. Been
they were
gesturing so
designed.
much.
They were not properly designed for you.
They're actually
and your
designed
needs.
really well. They're like for runners, and they have this thing that like locks in your ears. So we can talk about that one. All right, so it's a business, it's a user issue plus a business issue. So first you start with your user, then you start with what is the issue for your organization, and then that equals your problem statement. So here's one. We were talking about travel, right? Everyone loves to travel and get crammed into an airline, right? Into a seat on an airplane.
No.
So an example might be, how might we create a quick and efficient boarding process for passengers that maximizes safety and gate time to save, Delta money on their gate fees? So what I've done is I've said, I want this to be good for the passenger, presumably, right? You never know with the airlines. I want this to be a great experience for my passenger, but I don't want it to be, so leisurely and luxurious that we're getting killed with the fees that we're spending for every extra minute at the gate. So that's kind of the problem statement that you could have to attack different problems. And that gives you kind of a good baseline when you start brainstorming ideas from there.
That's awesome.
I get it.
Do you?
No. I would hire her.
I mean, have you seen all of the
hire,
articles and things that have come out about the ways that people want to, fix the boarding process? I mean, that's why we have things like the Southwest Airlines way. We've got, board from the windows first, then the middle, then the aisle, then there's, by sections. No, I don't think anyone solved it, so we could have a.
No, I'm still standing in line. I'm still standing in line. I'm still.
And that's the thing that I keep coming to, because as much as I hear a lot of people talking about the fact, if they're familiar with design thinking, they kind of get irritated by more and more people talking about it, because they're like, I've been doing this. It's not as it's not the end all be all. But I do have to say that there are so many more problems that need to be solved. Like, wouldn't it? I mean, it can't hurt for everybody to get well versed on what these different elements of design thinking really are. Right. So I mean, like, it's not, the answer is not going to be like down with design thinking. Right. What do you think?
And I think just to add on to that, I think one of the big caveats, to your joke earlier about, can we use design thinking for where to go for dinner? Yeah. Usually your problem statements, you want to be thinking about what problem are you trying to solve? But B, you also want to acknowledge, like, is it actually really a problem? Yeah. You don't want to waste a lot of time and energy going after something that's a problem for one person that maybe isn't a problem for anyone else. I mean, obviously you don't want that person to hang out to dry, but you want to make sure that it's something that is pervasive and persistent enough that it's really worth your time and energy. So is it an important thing to solve? Sometimes you can solve a problem and it really didn't, it's blue now instead of red. Okay, great. But it does matter if it was like, we have a lot of colorblind folks that are having problems seeing that, then blue to red actually makes sense. Yeah. So it's all about the context. And I think probably the absolute biggest thing is, how do you know if you solved the problem? Right. Because, at some point you're going to be taking some kind of time and potentially dollars and effort to, do some problem solving. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to say, what does success look like? Is it that we're more efficient? Is it that we have certain revenue? Is it that, we have surveys that are, an uptick in our user satisfaction? Whatever that looks like, you've got to be able to quantify that.
I love it. I want to hire you too, Layla.
I know. Come on in and help us design things. Design things.
You can design this.
If we want to get designed, where do we go?
Yeah, where do we go if we want to get designed, Layla?
You mean resources?
Well,
we're trying to get you plug your website. Can't you take
you mean for
how
me?
Can
Look
people
how humble
connect?
I am. I
Yes.
wasn't going to plug myself.
How people can
well,
reach
you can certainly for anything digital related. You can find me at beingcreative.com, and that's BEAN, like a green bean. Beingcreative.com. But I will say there's some really fantastic resources. IDEO is probably the granddaddy, I guess, of design thinking, and they have a lot of free resources. That's where I usually send people to kind of get their feet under them. But if I could put in a plug, I'm actually speaking about design thinking at ASAE's technology meeting next month.
Oh, yay!
So
Yeah, that's coming up soon. Yeah.
You can come talk to me then too. And thank you for chatting through this. This was really, great to be able to share resources and also to kind of
our maiden voyage.
Demystify. And yes.
The maiden voyage for the new. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. And I just want to say thanks so much just for your friendship, for always being game for trying something new, and for being just so smart and awesome. I really love that. That's so great. And I want to say thanks really quickly to those people who joined us today, Blake. They joined us today to give this sucker a test run. And so we have what? We have a call?
Yeah.
We have a call.
I was gonna say, are we gonna take callers?
Dude,
this is the only reason I wanted to be heckled by a caller.
All right. Let me bring this on. Let's see if we can make this happen. Hello.
I'm letting you drive.
You are on the air, I think. Hello, caller.
Hey, this is Georgia calling in. I'm trying to get into this thing.
Oh, man, Georgia, you made it. I'm so glad you're here.
Finally, no. I was on Association Chat clicking my brains out. I couldn't find you, so thanks.
I mean, well, we're going to try to make it easier and easier all the time. I'm so glad that this is our maiden voyage on testing out some new tools that we have here. And
I know.
Yeah.
I wanted to see it. That's why I was on YouTube. I was on Crowdcast. I was every place except we're not allowed to have Facebook in this company. So we can click anywhere but Facebook.
Wow. Okay. So
did you have a question for Layla?
Yeah. Do you have a question for Layla or for me, or did you have?
Or just saying hi?
No, I just joined, so I'm trying to catch up.
Okay. Well,
the question is, what did I miss for the past?
Can we go over all that again?
Yeah.
Can we do that again?
Well, let me do this. Let me ask you this, because actually this is Georgia Patrick, folks, and she is super, super smart. So this is actually a really great opportunity. What do you think? I'm going to ask you this. What do you think people get wrong most often about design thinking?
What they get wrong is simply not understanding how the brain works. Mm-hmm. It's that simple, how the brain gets from wishes, the word should, the should word, which is wishes, and then how they get through the creative, which is the totally creative design thinking part of the brain, which is the can word. Then that's millions of options. That's where the design and the thinking, and then how you quickly get from that to the will, which is where the traction and action is. But so the first one can be taught in books, and the last one can be taught in books, but that middle step is not taught, and that's the part that everybody trips up on.
You didn't even hear us talking about this, but I stumbled over the way to say that earlier, where it was turning things into a verb, and you just spelled it out for everyone. So thank you. That was perfect.
It goes from, Kiki, you should take out the garbage. Yeah, you should. That's a wish, but it ain't happening. Now let's come up with some options. You could bribe me with chocolate. You could be nice to me. You could send me flowers. You could. Which one are you going to do? And then somebody says, how about chocolate? And you said, okay, I will take out the garbage.
I love it.
I like ending on that.
Design thinking and all the way through.
So thank you, Georgia, for joining us. We're wrapping it up.
Welcome.
I love it. This was great. And thanks to all of you for joining us for Association Chat today. I really appreciate it. We're going to come back to you with more of these. They're going to be cooler, better. We'll get more callers, and I'll make sure that no matter where you click, you're going to figure out how to get on here so you can be on live. Thank you, Layla.
Awesome.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Georgia. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, everybody who logged on. Blake, carry us out.
Association Chat? No, you know who carries us out.
Oh, send it to my girl.
Thanks for listening to Association Chat, produced by Amplified Growth and Human Factor. For more information on Amplified Growth, go to amplifiedgrowth.net. And for more information on making podcasts for your association, go to Human Factor at humanfactor.net. To hear past episodes, go to the Association Chat YouTube channel and subscribe. See you soon!